Hey everybody, Uncle Gary here. Welcome back to the channel. As promised, I'm going to be recording more videos now and getting back to the kind of regular cadence of my videos. So in this video, what I'm going to cover is a little bit about immigration and some of the things that I'm seeing and being asked about with respect to people immigrating. And this video may be specific to Canada for the moment. We'll talk about the US in potentially later videos. But one thing that I'm seeing a lot of is people talking about just the high cost of living and the cost of rent in specifically Vancouver, Toronto, possibly Montreal and Calgary. Really high increases in rentals for places to live for people. And the other thing is people talking about, as an immigrant, when you come here, the intention or the expectation is that you get a job and you end up doing well and you have a prosperous life and so on. And that whole idea seems to be coming under a little bit of scrutiny because it's getting harder to find jobs that pay enough, given the increases in rent or mortgage rates. Even with a good salary, it's really quite challenging to afford a home and to have the life that I think people expected to have when they came to Canada or when they immigrated here. So let's talk about that for a moment, because I think it's a really important point. I see a lot of mostly people on the social media channels, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, kind of I suppose you'd call it like raging, or they're just really unhappy about how this is all going to hell in a handbasket and all the immigrants should leave and it's going to be terrible for everyone and people are leaving in droves and they're not staying and it's going to be terrible and the country's going down the toilet and so on. So you see a lot of these kind of hyped up, very sensitive posts, and it's true. I mean, it's coming from a place of people are really upset about what they're seeing, the changes that are happening in the economy. But ultimately, I think there's a point at which it comes down to what the expectation of the person was when they came here and how they view moving to a new country from wherever they're from. Because if you're not happy in a country, you should absolutely go wherever you're happiest. Go where you best feel your time is valued or best served. But there's an underlying belief in there that's sort of bubbling through the statement that the person's making. And that's usually that they had this expectation that they were going to come here, it was going to be a smooth ride into a job, high six-figure incomes, and then big houses, and then looking like rock stars and, leading a happy life and happily ever after kind of thing. And maybe I've got a different perspective. Not to say that perspective is wrong or bad, it's not, but I do have a differing one, because having immigrated out of my home country twice, I moved out of my home country once, it didn't go as planned, I went back, had to couch surf a little bit and get back on my feet, and then came back because I really did want to come to Canada. So I've actually moved here twice. And one of the things that I always remembered was my grandparents and great-grandparents came from a very much a persecuted situation where they were living in Eastern Europe. So many generations ago, and many years ago, should I say, my ancestors came out of a persecuted environment. They weren't, well regarded in the economy. They weren't well respected by the people who were in charge of the country at that time. And without putting too fine of a point of it, they had to basically run away under cover of darkness. You pack whatever you can carry on your back and you leave home in the middle of the night. And they had to swim across a river to get to the neighboring country and then get to the nearest port to get out of that area. Now, if you swam across that river and someone from the government that was in power at the time caught you, they would shoot you in the back. That's the reality of it. It was very serious. It was life or death if you made that trip. And if you left somewhere, the chances of you ever seeing your family again were basically zero. You never came back. You never went back. And it wasn't like there was regular postal service that you could just post a quick letter saying, "Hi, I've landed here, look me up if you need to speak to me." So it was a very difficult situation for my ancestors when they moved from where they moved. So when I immigrated to Canada, what I noticed was if I was having a bad day, if it was going badly for me, if I was struggling financially, struggling emotionally, struggling mentally, whatever I was dealing with, I would basically, at the time when I first moved here, I would use Skype and for free just call up my family or with video, be able to talk to them and chat about it and either tell them what I was dealing with and we'd work out a solution, or just share that I was unhappy about something and they'd say, okay, you know, maybe tomorrow will be better, or whatever they'd say. But the point was, you could get hold of your family. I could mail them stuff. They would send me care packages, you know, via the courier services we had, or they'd send it with a friend. And there was really easy contact with everyone. The world was very much smaller because of technology. And so the point of what I'm saying here is that people may want to leave if you think the place isn't to your liking, or it's not to your satisfaction, whatever the case is. Every time I've thought about that, I've thought back to my ancestors, and I thought, if I told my grandfather, who had to swim across a river at night under cover of darkness, under the threat of being shot in the back, and said to him, you know, it's really not comfortable here because I can't buy a big enough house, or I can't have the life I want, what would he say? Or what would my grandmother say? My grandmother at a very young age was kind of left to run a dairy farm on her own with younger siblings, and she was kind of single-handedly running a difficult thing to do for a younger woman. And I think back, before I complain too much about whether, you know, my rent is too high or the mortgage rates are, you know, going crazy, whatever the case is, I think to myself, if I complained about that, what would they say, given what they had to deal with? And that allows me to kind of temper my expectations, or just ground myself a little bit more, rather than just being in a, you know, in a flap, or being in a very unpleasant or unhappy mental state about a situation that I'm dealing with. So that's what this video was about, is using a little bit of perspective around how immigrating used to look. When you immigrated into a country, or you immigrated out of your home country, you know, in the old days, it used to be that story of, I came here with $10 in my pocket and had to work, you know, 4 jobs, and we joke about it, but that was really what it was like. Nowadays, we've kind of got this, well, you fly in, you know, in a fancy aeroplane, and you land, and you immediately get to a really nice apartment, and you live a wonderful life, going out for dinners every weekend, and, you know, have a cushy job, and we've come to expect that, like that's sort of a God-given right or something. And I don't believe it is. I think we've forgotten that sometimes when you move country, you get to hustle. You get to do what it takes, not do what's enjoyable. And I think enjoyment is great if you can get it, but that's not part of the deal. I don't think anyone promises that immigrating will be enjoyable. If anything, what I've heard from some people who've moved country many years ago is that it was one of the hardest things they ever did in their life, both emotionally, psychologically, financially, just logistically. It was extremely difficult, moving children, moving families, moving away from families. So it seems to me people that are upset about this, maybe they're just approaching it from a, you know, I had my heart set on something, or I thought it was going to go a certain way, or it should go a certain way, and I don't think they've actually looked at who said it was supposed to go that way. Who told you it was meant to be a certain way? Who told you you're meant to get a great job and have everything you want immediately that you wanted? I don't know who told us that, whether it was a friend, a family, the movies, maybe people read it in a book. Maybe we just want to impress our friends and just look like we're doing well. But that's something that I think will give people some reprieve from the tension or stress that they face around this issue. So that's what I wanted to share. I hope this was valuable, and let me know if you think this provided you value, or whether you think I'm completely off base. You can go ahead and leave a comment down below. Like and subscribe if this kind of content was intriguing to you, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you for watching.